Welcome in, everyone, to Lively Lewis Stories.
That's right, we're back with even more awesome adventures with Levi and Ivy.
Set your storytime meter to fun and get ready to join the Lively Lewis crew.
All you need is your imagination and...
Off we go!
I can't wait to see where our story takes us today.
Have you ever wanted to get more Lively Lewis in your life?
Well, we've got you covered.
Grab an adult and zoom over to livelylewisshop.com.
Or just click on the link in our show notes.
Enough about that. Let's get to today's super Lively Lewis story.
One day while walking to the park, Levi asked Ivy if she was afraid of anything. Her answer surprised him because Levi, although older than Ivy, always thought his little sister was pretty fearless. So, what do you think, Ivy? Is there anything you're afraid of? Asked Levi as he dragged his feet along the dirt path that led to the playground. Kind of, replied Ivy as she twirled down the path pretending to be a graceful ballerina. Really? What is it? Asked Levi, surprised at her answer. I'm kind of scared that one day we won't be as close as we are now. You know, like maybe we won't hang out all the time and you'll be busy with your friends and you'll forget all about me, proclaimed Ivy for the first time. No way, Ivy. You and I are always going to be best friends, Levi said reassuringly. And even if I want to hang out with my other friends, you can come along too. Thanks, Levi, said Ivy with a little smile. What about you? Are you afraid of anything? I guess I'm not a huge fan of spiders, Levi began, and snakes aren't my favorite, but really I think I would say my biggest fear is not knowing what I want to be when I grow up. Really? Asked Ivy. It's definitely a lot to think about, but that's such a long way away, and there are so many cool things you can do when you're older. Why would you be afraid of that? Well, that's just it, began Levi. There are so many things I want to be that I don't think I could decide on just one. Maybe a doctor who helps kids, or an engineer that builds roller coasters for amusement parks, or a race car driver, a restaurant owner, or a famous soccer player, or an actor. Wow, that's a lot to choose from, said Ivy as they reached the park. Well, I wouldn't worry about it right now. How about today we're just Levi and Ivy playing at the park? You know, that sounds like a great idea to me, replied Levi. Race you to the swings! As Levi took off with Ivy close behind, only a few seconds passed before they both saw a little boy sitting on a park bench next to the swings talking to his stuffed animal Giraffe. They couldn't help but watch him because they both recognized the little boy from school. He had just moved to their town earlier that week. Hi, Levi said as he approached the little boy. Don't I know you from school? I think you do, said the little boy. My name is Wyatt, and this is my giraffe, Gideon. Say hello, Gideon. Wyatt grabbed one of Gideon's hooves and raised it up towards Levi and Ivy and moved it as if the stuffed toy was waving at them. Nice to meet you, Wyatt and Gideon, replied Ivy, waving back. What are you up to today? Would you like to play with us? Sure, said Wyatt, looking at Gideon with a smirk on his face. But can I pick the game? Sure, said Levi. Will Gideon be playing too? He sure will, answered Wyatt. Actually, he kind of is the game. What do you mean? Asked Ivy. He's not just a stuffed toy, Wyatt began. He's magic, and I can prove it by saying one little magic phrase. Levi and Ivy were certainly excited by what Wyatt was saying, but they also didn't quite believe it. They smiled politely and looked at each other, unsure of what to say. I know it sounds a little crazy, but just watch, said Wyatt. And as he said that, he placed Gideon down on the ground and said the magic phrase, anything is possible. Levi and Ivy didn't know what to say or how to react. As Wyatt recited the magic phrase and Gideon, the stuffed toy, just sat there on the ground not doing much. But all Levi and Ivy had to do was just wait a minute longer to get the surprise of a lifetime. Hey friends, what do you think that surprise is going to be? So what are we waiting for exactly? Asked Ivy, sounding a bit confused, but not wanting to make Wyatt feel bad. Wyatt, however, looked anything but embarrassed. He smiled, counted out loud to 5, and then turned to Levi and Ivy and said, "We're waiting for this." As Wyatt said that, a cloud of fine blue mist began to swirl around Gideon. The playground seemed to fade away around them, and Levi and Ivy could only watch as their world turned into something they had never seen before. They were so focused by the blue mist and the changing environment that they didn't notice one very important and amazing thing. "Say hello to Gideon," said Wyatt. So pleased that the magic had worked and he could share Gideon's special powers with his new friends. Levi and Ivy finally turned their attention back to Wyatt and his stuffed giraffe toy, only to see that something had changed. "Is that a real giraffe?" exclaimed Levi. Ivy could only stand there in wonder and awe as Gideon now towered above them, standing almost 15 feet tall. "Hello, Gideon," called out Wyatt. "It's so good to see you again. These are my new friends, Levi and Ivy." "Hello, Levi and Ivy. It's so wonderful to meet you," said Gideon, lowering his head down to get a better look. "I love meeting new people, so what are we going to do today?" Despite his enormous presence, Gideon was calm and gentle with a wisdom about him that Levi and Ivy took comfort in. "Wow, I never met a real giraffe before, let alone a magical one," blurted out Levi. "What do you want to do today?" "Yeah, Gideon, Wyatt said you may have some fun adventure for us to go on," said Ivy. "Levi and I love a good adventure, especially with new friends. But first, where are we? We're certainly not in the park anymore." "That's right, Ivy," began Gideon. "The park is a long way from here, but as long as we stay together, I know we'll have a fine time in this magical world. Wyatt is right. I do have some adventures that I can take you on if you want to go. They may be a little scary at times, but I'll never, ever leave your side. And at the end of it, you'll have faced your biggest fears and overcome them by being courageous and brave." Ivy was all ready to go. She knew this would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and thought the adventure with Gideon was quite fitting, given the conversation that she and Levi had on their way to the park. But Ivy could tell when she looked at Levi that he was a little unsure of it all. "Levi, I know you're nervous about facing your fears, but I'll be here with you," said Ivy. "I'll never leave your side. Neither will Wyatt or Gideon. We'll do it together and be that much stronger, braver, and confident when it's all through. Come on, no one loves a good adventure more than you." "You're right, Ivy," replied Levi with a smile. "This adventure about facing our fears does sound pretty cool. Let's do it." And with that, Ivy, Levi, Wyatt, and Gideon set off onto the new landscape before them. Before they knew it, the path they were on took a sharp left and led them right into what Gideon called the Whispering Forest. Once there, he explained to Wyatt, Levi, and Ivy that the forest was filled with paths lined with magical trees. The forest held secrets for each of them that would help them conquer their biggest fears. "But you must be aware that the paths in the forest can change at any moment," said Gideon. "So you must stay alert and aware of your surroundings at all times so we don't get lost." Everyone agreed and walked close together as they made their way into the forest and toward the labyrinth of echoes. "Like I told you before," said Gideon, "on our journey you will face several challenges that will help you overcome your fears, take control of them, and conquer them, so they no longer make you scared or nervous. Once you're in control of the fear, then it can no longer be in control of you." Levi, Ivy, and Wyatt drew strength from Gideon and his wise, encouraging words as they made their way through the labyrinth filled with giant trees. And as they did, Levi stopped, asking Ivy if she heard a faint voice in the distance. "I don't hear anything, Levi," said Ivy as she stood and listened. "It sounds like someone saying that I can be a doctor," began Levi. But then another voice cuts in saying I should be an engineer, but still another voice calls out that I should be a soccer player. Gideon could see that Levi was becoming frustrated and scared by all the choices being called out to him. "Levi," said Gideon, "no matter what you hear, they're just words. You're the one to make the decision to be whatever you want to be. The voices can't tell you what to do. They can only tell you your options. You make the final choice, not them." Levi listened closely to Gideon's words and started to feel a bit more confident. "You're right, Gideon. I get to make the decision regarding what I want to do when I grow up, not anyone else," said Levi. "And I still have lots and lots of time to do that. I shouldn't be worried, but rather excited at the possibilities I have before me. That's it, Levi. You're getting it now. Good job, Levi, said Wyatt. Yeah, great job, Levi. I'm proud of you, added Ivy. As they continued to walk through the labyrinth, Levi's voices faded away, only to be replaced by voices calling out to Ivy this time. Do you hear that? Asked Ivy. Wyatt and Levi shook their heads no as Ivy described the voices whispering to her that she was alone. Levi was nowhere to be found because he had other people he wanted to be with more. Remember, Ivy, you are in control. The fear you're feeling is just a thought. It's not real, Gideon said reassuringly. Ivy listened closely to Gideon's words and knew that what he was saying was true. The voice began to fade as she pushed their negative words out of her head. My brother and I will always be best friends. I don't have to be scared of us ever growing apart, said Ivy as the voices faded away, just like Levi's did. Great job, Ivy and Levi, said Wyatt. You're both doing a great job on this journey. Thank you, Wyatt. But what about you? Do you have any fears to face? Asked Levi. This journey isn't about me, replied Wyatt. It's about the two of you. Now let's follow Gideon and continue our adventure. Levi and Ivy shrugged their shoulders, unsure of why this adventure was only for them, but they trusted Wyatt, Gideon, and the whole process and walked on to see what was next. After just a few short minutes of walking, Gideon, Wyatt, Levi, and Ivy all reached the edge of a beautiful lake and an even more beautiful island floating out in front of them. But it was too far for them to reach without a boat or a bridge. I wonder what's on that island, asked Ivy. I don't think we'll ever find out, answered Levi. It's just too far away. Now that's no way to look at the situation. Be positive, began Gideon. It looks far, but is there anything around here that could reach the island? As Gideon said this, he swayed his long neck back and forth. Levi and Ivy quickly knew what he was implying. Do you think your net could reach all the way to the island? Asked Ivy. That's a great thought, said Gideon. Let's give it a try. And as he said that, he stretched out his long neck over the glistening blue water and reached right across to the shore of the island. He told Wyatt, Levi, and Ivy to gently make their way across and explore the island together. Once they got to the island, Gideon pulled back his long neck and called out to the kids. You are now on Floating Isle. Stay together and you will complete the next part of the journey with no problem at all, said Gideon. Just remember to think of others. Sometimes putting yourself in someone else's shoes is all you have to do to find the answer. As Wyatt, Levi, and Ivy ventured onto the floating isle, they heard something making a terrible noise in the bushes ahead of them. The sound got louder and louder as they walked. What do you think that is? Ivy asked, looking scared. I think it's a griffin, stammered Wyatt, looking nervous as well. And he was right. Out from behind a tall wall of bushes stepped a massive and very angry-looking griffin. This legendary creature with the body, tail, and back legs of a lion and the head and wings of an eagle stood before them looking rather upset. Oh no! I thought you were Vivian! He roared before turning around to head back into the bushes. Who's Vivian, Mr. Griffin? Asked Ivy. Is she lost? Do you need help finding her? Added Levi. We'd be happy to help, said Wyatt. Good job, kids, called out Gideon from across the lake as he watched over the three brave adventurers. Well, actually, yes, I could use some help, began the Griffin. My name is George, and I always feared this would happen. I lost my little sister Vivian. I'm so sad, and I just need to get her back home. Levi and Ivy knew exactly how George must be feeling. They once got separated at an amusement park, and it was really scary. I think I know how we can help you, said Ivy. What is Vivian's favorite thing to do on the island? Well, I know she loves picking wild berries on the far side of the island, answered George. But what good will that information do? I think I know where I can look for her now, said Ivy. Everyone followed as George led them on the island's berry patch, and it turns out Ivy was right. Vivian, it's you! Exclaimed George with such relief and joy in his voice. I missed you so much. He thanked Ivy for leading them to his sister and asked how she knew where she'd be. When I lost my brother at the amusement park one day, I thought of the places he liked to go when we were there, Ivy started. one place he loved was the roller coaster, so I walked over there and he was waiting in line. I'm so happy that I could help you find your sister." "Thank you so much," said George, giving everyone a hug. "I'll never, ever, ever forget you." Wyatt, Levi, and Ivy then heard Gideon calling them back over to the other side of the island and knew it was time to go. They waved goodbye to George and Vivian and headed back to the shore where Gideon was waiting to carry them back into the forest. "You were all so brave and so helpful to George and Vivian," said Gideon. "You faced a scary situation and didn't turn away. Instead, you tried to make it better, and you did. Great job." As they all stepped back down on solid ground, Wyatt, Levi, and Ivy couldn't wait to see where they would go next and what incredible characters they would meet. But as they walked along, the sky became dark, and a thick, heavy fog rolled in. It was so heavy that they quickly couldn't see where they were going. They all got turned around and suddenly found themselves lost. "Don't be afraid, kids. We'll get through this tough time too," called out Gideon through the blinding fog. "We are now in the abyss of time. It's part of the forest where time moves very differently. Here you will have to face your fears alone. But I know that each of you has learned so much on your journey so far that we will all meet up on the other side of the forest very soon. I trust you all. Just trust yourselves." Ivy was the first to take on the challenges as she walked alone in the fog. She was nervous, and in the silence, she started to think about not being as close to Levi as they grew up. He always made everything better and their adventures more fun. How would she make it through the fog without him? Then she stopped herself from going down that path in her mind, the path that led her to doubt herself and to think only of a negative outcome. Ivy instead hummed a silly song to herself, a song that she and Levi had made up the day before. A feeling of calm washed over her, and all of a sudden it felt like Levi was right there beside her. She knew this was how it would always be, and in no time, the fog cleared and she emerged in front of Gideon. Meanwhile, Levi trudged through the dense fog, trying to find his way back to everyone. But as he moved forward, he saw someone and thought immediately it must be Ivy or Wyatt. But instead, he found himself face to face with himself. It was an older version of himself, but he still couldn't tell it was him. He was dressed in a soccer uniform. Another version of him stepped out of the fog dressed as a doctor, and still another older Levi approached him dressed as an engineer carrying blueprints in his hands. The vision should have been overwhelming, but to Levi, not anymore. He looked at all the possible future Levis and simply smiled. "I can't wait to see which of you I will become," said Levi out loud. "Or maybe it will be all of you. The possibilities are endless, and that is no longer scary to me. Instead, it makes me feel excited for what the future holds, because I know it's all up to me." Levi took a few more steps forward, and the visions vanished as he stepped out of the fog and saw Ivy waiting for him with Gideon. "You both made it through and faced your fears. I couldn't be prouder of you," said Gideon. "Wyatt is the only one left who has to face something he's been thinking about for a while now." As Wyatt walked through the fog, he saw a vision of a herd of wild giraffes roaming the plains of Africa. One of them he recognized right away. "Gideon? Is that you?" Wyatt said to himself. Were you a real giraffe?" As he asked this question, he stepped out of the fog right in front of Gideon. "Yes, Wyatt, I was. But a curse was put on me when I wandered into the Whispering Forest one day. I became a toy, and you found me at the park. My job at that point was to teach children that their fears had no control over them, and they could overcome them. I loved helping you and your friends out, Wyatt, but I would really love to see my family again." "Gideon, I had no idea," began Wyatt. "I will miss you so much, but sending you back to live your life as a real giraffe is the most important thing I could do for you. When I found you, my biggest fear was thinking that I wouldn't meet any friends after moving here, but you made me see that everything would be okay. Then I met Ivy and Levi, and that's the reason I didn't have to face anything in the labyrinth of echoes. I had my friends already around me." Gideon smiled at Wyatt as a tear fell from his eye. "Thank you for your friendship, Wyatt, and thank you for allowing me to go back home," said Gideon. "You just have to say the magic words, and I'll be gone. But please know I will never forget you. Or you, Levi and Ivy. Whenever you feel fear taking over, know that you can get through anything, that you are brave and strong, and you have each other. In that moment of calm, I will be there watching over you." "We'll miss you, Gideon," said Levi and Ivy. "I'll miss you the most," said Wyatt as he wiped away a tear. but I know this is the right thing to do." Then Wyatt closed his eyes and gave Gideon a big hug and said the magic words, "Anything is possible." Then in a blink of an eye, Gideon was gone, and Wyatt, Levi, and Ivy were standing back in the park. When they looked down, there on the park bench was a small metal sculpture of a giraffe. Wyatt picked it up and placed it in his pocket with a smile. From that day on, Wyatt was always a part of Levi and Ivy's life. The three were close friends and shared many more incredible adventures together. And not one adventure went by that they didn't think of Gideon and the wonderful lessons that he taught them about bravery, friendship, and believing that anything is possible. Want to start a podcast? Spotify has an easy free platform called Spotify for Podcasters. Here's how it works. Record and edit your podcast on your phone or computer with ease. Share your podcast on Spotify and all other major platforms. You can even make video podcasts on Spotify. If you want to engage with your audience more, use Q&A and polls. You can earn money through ads and podcast subscriptions. It's completely free, no hidden cost. Give it a try. Visit www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. We love making our podcast, and working with Spotify has been amazing. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the story and learned a little something too.
And since we know everyone has their own story, we'd love to hear yours.
If you have an idea for a Lively Lewis story, leave a comment on our Apple Podcast review page with 5 stars, your idea, and your little one's name.
Then maybe our next adventure will be with you.
Until our next Storytime Hangout.
Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share another fun, Lively Lewis story with you.